Question number 6, the name of Deputy Claire Daly.
I propose to take questions 6 to 9 together, Cancora.
6, 7, 8 and 9 together.
The forthcoming visit of President Obama will be an historic occasion for Ireland and a very significant event, celebrating the strong ties between the peoples of Ireland and the United States. I know he will receive a very warm welcome to our shores. Plans for the President's visit are currently nearing finalisation. Consultation with officials in the US Embassy and the White House are ongoing, and senior US officials will travel to Dublin in the coming days to agree the final details. The programme will include a meeting with President McAleese in Áras an Uachtaráin and a bilateral meeting with myself. It is also expected that President Obama will pay a visit to Moneygall and that he will make a public address at an event in Dublin City. The public address in Dublin will be part of a major entertainment event. The programme and the venue have yet to be confirmed. Entrance will be free of charge, with tickets available to the general public, and it will be designed as a welcome to the President and the First Lady of the US. Organising an event of this scale will involve working closely with many public agencies, as well as businesses and citizens. I appreciate that people will experience some disruption as a consequence, and I want to thank everyone who will be affected, both for their patience and for their forbearance. This is an historic opportunity to put our capital and our people on view to a potentially huge audience around the world. The full details of the overall programme will be finalised and announced as soon as they are available. I expect that I will discuss a range of issues with President Obama during the course of his visit, and I will emphasise how much the Irish people value our relationship and the enduring friendship with the United States. It is likely that our discussions will also cover the global economic situation and Ireland's determination to overcome the difficulties that we face. I will be stressing that this country is open for business and will emphasise the many advantages to doing business here in Ireland. The President's visit, as deputies will be aware, comes just after the historic visit of Queen Elizabeth. It is anticipated that up to 1,000 international media representatives will cover both visits. Taken together, these visits will highlight Ireland and its people and will instill confidence and hope in a brighter future.
Deputy Daly.
Taoiseach, I wouldn't actually call that an answer in any great detail, and I think that given that the visit is imminent, I would have expected maybe a little bit more, and I wonder, is it your intention to come back to this House and give us a full schedule of events when you get them? You have dealt a little bit with the content of some of the discussions that you intend to have with President Obama, but you were also maybe a little bit silent on a number of other issues, which I wonder if you could enlighten us whether you intend to raise. Particularly, I think, whether you intend to raise with President Obama whether it's his intention to implement any initiative whatsoever to deal with the undocumented citizens in the United States, many of whom obviously are Irish, although not to the exclusion of others, and whether you intend to fight their corner, as it were, Taoiseach. And I think crucially, in light of the events in the past week, whether it is your intention to raise the issue of the incursion of the United States into Pakistan in light of the assassination of Osama bin Laden, and whether it's your intention to inquire of the President whether it is the policy of the United States to act as judge, juror and executioner of those accused of crimes, or whether they might be better off leaving these matters to trial.
Thank you, Deputy. Taoiseach.
Well, the Deputy's question asks about if we can report in detail on the plans for President Obama's visit to Ireland. I can't give you all of the details, Deputy, because I don't have them yet. And the reason I don't have them is that when the American President pays a visit to any country, obviously members of his own administration travel to the country in question in the first instance, and they discuss with the authorities in those countries, including Ireland, the actual detail of where the President, and in this case the President and the First Lady, will actually travel. So, for instance, in respect of the event to be held in Dublin city centre, it's not actually agreed yet, because the US personnel have to look at the sites in question, have to give their view on the range and extent of the numbers who might turn up and so on. So from that point of view, I can't actually give you the finalised detail because it hasn't been agreed. In respect of the undocumented Irish, I make this point here. I raised this matter with the President and the administration in the White House in Washington on St. Patrick's Day. The position, as Deputy Daly will be aware, is that the situation insofar as politics in Washington has changed, in that the Democratic Party have control of the Senate and the Republican Party now have control of Congress. The much acclaimed or the much sought after comprehensive legislation to deal with immigration, in my view, will not now happen in the short term because of that change. However, arising from recent events, it may well be that a package of enforcement measures insofar as homeland security for the US is concerned will have to be brought forward. If that's the case, that will begin in the Congress and will make its way through that process. The appropriate time to make an amendment to that would be sometime during that process, and the appropriate amendment to make in Ireland's case would be to look for the E3 visa system, which is a renewable visa system, which would give some relief and release of pressure in respect of undocumented Irish people. Senator Schumer from New York will be the author of whatever documentation actually goes through that process. I met with the Irish lobby for immigration reform when I was in New York last week, and obviously that group are well aware of the process by which legislation and amendments to legislation can be put through both the Congress and the Senate. So in that regard, Senator Schumer from New York is in a powerful position and has lots of contact with the Irish community, is well aware of the extent of this. You are aware of the scale of this problem in the United States, and that's the difficulty that the legislators have in respect of putting bills through that would give legislative effect to an overall and comprehensive immigration reform position. I myself met a number of undocumented Irish people, some of whom have been there since before 9/11 and have a degree of difficulty, obviously. They're members of the community who pay their social security and pay their taxes, and in most cases have families and businesses that they look after, but they are undocumented, not dissimilar from many other nationalities. The problems range from those who've been out there recently and have overstayed their welcome, some with problems, to those who've been there for a much longer period and also have difficulties. So in that regard, you can take it that the government have a particular focus on this, and on the occasion that every Minister and Minister of State goes out there, we will intend to build up the relationships on behalf of the government and therefore the people of Ireland with both the Democratic personnel and the Republican personnel, because in any event, whatever change has to be made is going to have to go through both the Congress and the Senate, and that requires connections and discussions on a regular basis. Insofar as the other global matters that you mentioned are concerned, it's not down for specific debate, but obviously the question of global terrorism is an issue that has affected us here to some extent or other, either through direct deaths resulting from 9/11 or the consequences of and the impact of global terrorist activities in other parts of the world.
Boyd Barrett. Sorry. I'm on to. There's four people with questions. I'll be back to you in a second. Deputy Boyd Barrett.
Taoiseach, it has been reported, and your government hasn't contradicted this, that the visits of President Obama and the Queen, that the combined cost of those may run to about €25 million, and we still can't get a straight answer as to whether that is the case. But given those reports, could I ask you that in a situation where a growing number of voices, experts, commentators, internationally and domestically, are saying that our economy is ruined, given the constant protestations of your ministers that they have no money for anything because we're in the straitjacket of the IMF, and given the fact that the much vaunted jobs budget, now a jobs initiative, which would be fiscally neutral, is looking certain to be a damp squib to beat all damp squibs, given that we're not allowed.
Visit, please.
Given the question is coming, Count Corda. Given that we're not allowed to put any serious money into the economy to create jobs, would it not be better to spend that money, 25 million, on things that would actually create a few jobs, build a couple of schools, build a new hospital, maybe reverse some of the cuts to special needs affecting some of the most vulnerable in our country? That is a question,
Come on.
Count Corla. Would it not be better to save this money, Taoiseach? I don't know why, it's a question, very clearly a question, Count Corla. Would it not be better to save the money that is being spent, the millions that is being spent on this visit, on things that would actually put people to work and provide things?
We don't want to speak at question time. You ask
it's a question, Count Corla. Very clearly a question.
What question exactly?
I said, would it not be better to spend the money on something more useful? I don't know why you're interrupting me, Count Corla,
because your question is about President Obama's visit.
Would it not be better to spend the money on President Obama's visit elsewhere on something that would provide jobs, help the vulnerable in our society, build a couple of schools or a hospital? And couldn't the issues that you have given in your answer, couldn't the issues that you say you are going to discuss in your answer be better discussed in a phone call, which would be cheaper? And could I also ask the Taoiseach that if he insists in going ahead with this visit, is he going to ask President Obama whether he thinks it is appropriate that his Treasury Secretary, Geithner, interfered with the negotiations over the debt burden of this country and essentially vetoed plans to burn
the Taoiseach to answer the question. Thank you, Taoiseach. Would you answer the question? The one irrelevant to the question is down.
I don't want to hear these questions because they're some question.
First of all,
Relevant to the Taoiseach.
I can't recall, I think, anybody who's as disillusioning as Deputy Boyd Barrett about everything you say. There are bright days in Ireland, and there are good things that happen in our country. I don't think I've ever heard you mention any of the really valuable works that communities, even in your own constituency, do. Now, you want a straight answer to a straight question, and you put out a figure which is not real. I could ask you the same question: is can you tell the House what you're going to spend in the next general election? You won't be able to answer me either. So the point is that if you consider, for instance, in the protests in which you've been involved yourself, and protests are perfectly legitimate, a cost has been accrued on those as well, which might have gone towards providing computers in some of the schools that you mentioned. Be that as it may, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity, Deputy Barrett, for real investment here. Voted monies go through the Cabinet each year for particular departments, including for the Department of Justice. It is entirely appropriate and very normal that when visitors of the scale of the global reach of the Queen and the President of the United States come here, that they be properly protected, and that's very normal. In this case, however, with two global personalities coming here in a very short time, this is a brilliant opportunity to present our country and its people in the very best light internationally, and will reap enormous returns in terms of tourism spin-off for the people in your constituency and right throughout this country, who will benefit from overseas visitors coming to this country as a consequence of the visits of both Queen Elizabeth and President Obama.
Deputy Micheál Martin.